In today's video, we'll be going over the SSIS HubSpot components, which are included in the SSIS Integration Toolkit for HubSpot. The HubSpot Connection Manager is needed to establish a connection to your HubSpot environment and will be used alongside the source component for reading and the destination component for writing data to your target system. After installing our toolkit, we will start by selecting the Connection Manager. In our Integration Services project, we can create this by going to the Connection Manager's window, right-clicking and selecting New Connection. From the drop-down, find the HubSpot Connection Manager and select Add. This will open the Connection Manager window and take us to the general page. There are two authentication modes, OAuth Public App and Access Token Private App. For the first option, you may provide the path and password for an existing token you have generated before. Note we support both file system path and shared access signature URL within your Azure Blob Storage for cloud-based deployment models. You may also generate a new token using the Generate Token File button. When selected, you will see two app types available. The first one, KingswaySoft, is the KingswaySoft's OAuth app, and this is a publicly shared app that we provide as a convenience if you don't already have an app created. You may verify the scopes. You can easily select and unselect all or choose any specific ones. For the option Additional Scopes, this is the same, but you may add scopes that enhance the app's capabilities but are not critical for the basic operations. This may help in cases where the additional requested permissions may not be available for all HubSpot accounts, and if the account doesn't have the permissions to the resource where the scope is needed, the authorization step would process without failing the authentication. Essentially, the scope would just be skipped. If you select the Use Default Browser to sign in, this will use your machine's default browser to sign in. The KingswaySoft app is just meant during testing and not recommended in a production environment. For the second option, My Own App, the same details will be needed as above, but you will be going into your HubSpot developers instance to get the client ID and secret from the app settings and the redirect URL from the authentication tab. You need to have the redirect URL be a valid path and ensure it has no redirections of its own. The Access Token Private App would be the second authentication mode, and this would be for working with HubSpot's private app. Within HubSpot's developer section, under the app's authentication page, you can copy the access token, and just as before, you can test the connection. If we go to the second page, Advanced Settings, here you may work with these options as required. For the proxy server settings, this allows you to configure a proxy server. By default, the No Proxy is selected. The second option would be Auto Detect. This would be for system configured proxies. And then the third option, Manual, would be for providing proxy details manually. The proxy server and port may be entered, and additionally, if there's proxy authentication requirements, you may enable this and set the username and password as needed. Under the miscellaneous settings, the first option that we see is timeout in seconds. By default, this is 120 seconds, but may be adjusted. And this is the amount of allotted time when we send a request and we wait for the server to respond before a timeout error occurs. The second option, API throttling rate, this would be the number of requests per second. By default, this would be set to 10 requests per second. And the last option, intermittent errors, is enabled by default, and this is designed to recover from intermittent outages or disruptions of service, and it prevents the integration process from stopping due to these temporary issues. When this option is enabled, the service call will be retried upon certain failures. Note, a service call may be retried up to 4 times and set back off intervals before an exception occurs. And if we go under the last page, More Info, this would just be general information about our toolkit. Once everything has been configured, you may press OK to save and close the Connection Manager. Once you have the Connection Manager ready, you can drag and drop a source component into your data flow. The first page that you will see is the general page. Here you may select the Connection Manager, the Connection Manager we have created before, or a new one that you can also create. For the source object, this is a dropdown that gives a list of available objects, both standard as well as custom. A batch size of 100 is set by default, but you may adjust for how many records you want to retrieve in each request. The batch size option may not be available for all objects. For the output time zone, this is to specify how the datetime field should be retrieved. By default, this will be set to UTC, and HubSpot uses this by default as well. Local time may be selected, and this will adjust to the machine's local time. When you select the Search API, you may generate a filter below. You may select the field, the operator, and the comparison can either be a static value or a variable. If you enable the recently created only, this will get all the records that have been created in the last 30 days or the 10,000 most recent ones. This is available for company, although not limited to the 30 days, contact, deal, and engagement objects. You may enable the recently modified only option, and this is the same as the created one, where it was the last 30 days or the most recent 10,000 records that will be retrieved, and this is only for company, contact, and deal objects. In the filter parameters, the smart search parameter is only for the contact object to perform a smart search where the first name, last name, or email begins with the supplied value, and it returns the ones that match. The other parameters may differ based on the object selected. If we go into the columns page, if the source object has child objects, you may switch between their column configurations. You may also hide the selected fields or hide the unselected fields. Also, you may find a field quickly by filtering for it. The first column are the fields to select or unselect, and the selected ones will be passed downstream. The HubSpot field is the field name in the HubSpot environment, and the data type may be adjusted if needed for the string, datetime, and numeric types. If you have metadata changes, you may use the refresh component button and verify they are included as well. The effects icon may be clicked when you want to work with the component's properties dynamically. The properties related to the current component will have the HubSpot source in the name. You may press OK to save your source component's configuration. In a new data flow, we already have two components to provide us with some example data, and what we can do in the SSIS toolbox is drag and drop the HubSpot destination component. The first option lets us select the connection manager, and we'll just choose the one created before. In our example, we will choose contact in the destination object. There are 4 actions to choose from. The create is for creating new records. The update will be for updating existing records based on primary fields. For the upsert action, this would update an existing record if it exists, otherwise it creates a new one instead. Note that this is only for the contact object only. The upsert functionality only works if an email is supplied. If the VID or visitor ID is supplied instead, it'll function like a regular update. And the last option, delete, deletes records that match the primary field. Please note that this would be only for the contact object and requires a primary field. The batch size would be how many records to send in the request, and please note that not all objects would support batch. The bulk polling interval would be the frequency rate to poll the status of the job to determine if it has been completed. This would be only enabled for the file and folder objects. For the input time zone, by default this is set to UTC, and you may specify the time zone of all incoming datetime fields. The input time zone would be to specify the time zone of all incoming datetime fields. You may select from UTC, which is the default, or your machine's local time. Under the columns page, the top 2 options let you hide map fields or hide unmapped fields quickly. The input column would be the fields that you are mapping from the upstream data flow. The HubSpot field would be the field name in the HubSpot environment. The third option would be for if you want to set enumeration mapping. The data type would be the data type of the field in your HubSpot environment. Certain types may be adjusted by clicking them. And the last column, unmap option, would be to quickly unmap a field or map it if the name matches. And at the top right, you can filter for a specific field. If we go back to the enumeration mapping column, if available for the field, you may click the ellipsis to open the enumeration option mapping editor. In our example, we're going to be working with currency. The input value is the value coming in from the upstream component's currency field. The drop-down enumeration option value will provide a list of values for the field. This helps when the format is different, as the input would be converted to the enumeration option value. The second option lets you delete the mappings. And the third and fourth option would be for importing an XML file of previous mappings or exporting the current mappings you have to an XML file. Under action of non-matched values, there are 4 options to choose from of what to do with non-matched values. The first option would create a enumeration option value if it doesn't already exist. The second one would replace an existing option. The third one would set as an empty or null value, or the fourth one you can set to raise an error when a non-matched value is found. You may click the refresh component button to refresh if there's been any metadata changes, and you may map any unmapped fields. This would be based on name. You may also clear all mappings to quickly unmap all the fields. Under the error handlings page, this is how you would perform the error handling mechanism. By default, it's set to fail on error. If you set it to redirect to error output, this would provide another output for you and you can map it to downstream components. And the last option is if you want to ignore the error. There are 3 additional fields for default output you may select, and these would be helpful if you want to perform further integrations downstream. The HubSpot record ID, the isNew field, and the accepted field. Once we are happy with our configuration, we can press OK to save and close.
The last thing we want to show is how to connect the output path for further downstream components. The red path is the error output path that has the error rows, and we can set this to redirect. If we double click the path, we can see the error columns that have additional error details such as the error code, the error column, and the error message columns. We may also connect the default path downstream, which is the records that have successfully been written. Any of the additional fields selected in the error handling page will be present there, such as the selected HubSpot record ID, the isNew, or the accepted columns.
We hope this video has helped in understanding our SSIS integration toolkit for HubSpot. Kingswaysoft, data integration made easy.